A Team 4 investigation finds registered voters in western Pennsylvania who are not United States citizens.
Now, if this sounds familiar, it's because Team 4 first exposed this problem in 2008, and yet it continues. Here's investigative reporter Jim Parsons.
Federal officials here in Pittsburgh recently sent a warning letter to state elections officials in Harrisburg. The letter included the names of registered voters who claim they're not U.S. citizens. Elections officials got a similar letter in 2008. All of the non-citizens have been able to vote, and some have actually done it. Since the founding of the nation, the law has been clear. You have to be an American to vote in America.
I certainly do have a problem with somebody who's not a citizen voting in our country.
I think you should be a citizen to vote.
But according to this letter, 12 non-citizens in western Pennsylvania are registered to vote. The letter from the United States District Court in Pittsburgh notified Pennsylvania's Department of State of 12 registered voters who are non-citizens. Attached to the letter are copies of some of the non-citizens' green cards. One of the 12 isn't just registered to vote, but voting records show she actually has voted twice in 2007, once in 2008, and again last year. We got no answer when we tried to pay her a visit here at her home in Banksville. Team 4 discovered the same problem 2 years ago. Registered voters who were called for federal jury duty but claimed they were non-citizens. Back then, we posed this question to Department of State spokeswoman Leslie Amoros. Do you think that there are non-citizens who are registered in Pennsylvania to vote?
No,
You don't
I don't think there are.
But this time around, federal courts officials have provided green cards proving that non-citizens are registered to vote.
I have a lot of concerns about people who are not citizens being permitted to vote. I mean, we need to do a better job up in the Department of State. I mean, there's people who've been on, because of the motor voter registration law, there's people who've been on the list for 10 years who have passed away, God rest their souls.
In a statement, the Pennsylvania Department of State says it has not contacted those citizen voters. Instead, it sent letters to county elections officials in the communities where non-resident voters have been identified. The state officials say it's up to the county officials to do something.
We told you about people who were voting at the polls that weren't actually U.S. citizens.
And now, thanks to our report, a state representative is stepping in and demanding to see the lists cleaned up. Channel 4 Action News reporter Jim Parsons with the investigation that is changing elections. Jim.
And Michelle, as a result of our Team 4 investigation last May, we've learned that Allegheny County has removed more than a dozen people from the voter rolls, people who are not American citizens. But a state lawmaker still wants to know how they got there in the first place so it doesn't happen again.
We saw your report and we were contacted by a constituent who had concerns.
State Representative Matt Smith says he was stunned by Team 4's investigation last May, revealing a federal court document that listed a dozen non-citizens in western Pennsylvania who were registered to vote. And in fact, some of them had voted.
The right to vote is a very sensitive issue. People have died protecting that right to vote. And I think for one person to do it illegally is one too many.
The court records say that a Mandisa Brown lives here. And here's her name right here. Mandisa Brown. And apparently showed documentation that she is not a U.S. citizen, but she's on the voter rolls. Or at least she was. She was not home, but she no longer is a registered voter, it turns out. Following our investigation, the county elections department says it has removed her from the rolls along with the other foreign nationals on the list from federal court. But what about next time? The federal court notified the Department of State in 2008 that this was happening. We did a story on it. And then it happened again in 2009. So what does that tell you?
Exactly. Someone's not following up on the issue here. And that to me is the main issue, the fact that this should never happen again.
Voting rights advocate Dave Brown says he isn't surprised that non-citizens are registered to vote here.
Vote Allegheny recently did an analysis of the voter rolls and found 376 duplicate names. And Mark Wolosek, or the election department, checked those and found that 75% of those were indeed duplicates, and they removed them.
And Allegheny County Elections Chief Mark Wolosek was out of town today and unavailable for comment on this story.
This whole notion of election or voting fraud, this is something that is constantly been disproved. This is fake news.